Hey there, and thanks for being here on the Real Construction Owners Podcast. I'm your host, Justin Ledford, and we have a very special guest today. Joshua Steinberger, the owner of Next Gen Restoration. His company has brought in over $150 million in revenue, and this year they're going to bring in over $17 million in business. He's a real construction owner that has a thriving company. You're going to want to stay until the very end because we're going to go over some high level tactics that have made him millions of dollars. This episode is brought to you by federalconstructionuniversity.com, which is our coaching program that guides contractors how to win highly profitable government construction contracts and become an owner instead of an operator. We give you a proven blueprint that you can use for your construction company that will make it a machine that generates millions of dollars for you. We even give you our recruiting machine, which will enable you to recruit commission-based salespeople weekly like clockwork. If that interests you, then go to the link in the comments below. Now let's get started with our guest right now. Welcome to the Real Construction Owners Podcast, where we interview real construction owners doing big things to help you go from being a stressed out operator to a thriving business owner. Today, we have Joshua Steinberger out of Ohio, the owner of Next Gen Restoration. And he also has a coaching business called My Wife Will Cut You, teaching business owners how to be thriving with their wife as one of their partners. This man is going to do around $17 million in business this year. So if you're a contractor and you want the nuggets, the wisdom, and learn some of his processes, you're going to want to pay close attention. Here we go. What's up, Joshua? How you doing, bud?
I am doing fantastic. Thank you for having me.
Hey, man, it's a pleasure. I found you on social media, and I saw that you were doing big things. You have a couple offices. You have big numbers. You know, you're living the dream. You have a partner who's your wife, and you have systems and organization to where you don't have to do all the work, where you're an owner and not an operator. And that's what a lot of these contractors struggle with, is they're wearing too many hats. And before we get started in the meat and potato of all the goods, give us your story, your background, and tell us your past, you know, how it all got started and why somebody should want to listen to you.
I don't know, we got a lot of time for all that, but Cliff Notes version is, I've been doing this for 15 years. I'm a young guy. I'm 37 years old now, right? So that means that pretty much my entire life outside of school, I've owned and operated a contracting company. Immediately following high school, I got online, got a Monster right back in those days, and was looking for an opportunity. And I came across a company called Global Marketing Enterprises, GME, out of Cleveland, Ohio. And man, their website looks so cool. It was a top 100 marketing company for companies like AT&T, MasterCard, all the big names out there. And this is about when the movie How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days was like super fresh, right? Matthew McConaughey comes in, he's super jazz and looks so cool. And he's a marketing guy, right? He sells, diamonds and booze in the movie. And I can remember when I was, I'm 18 years old and I'm watching that movie and I'm like, that looks so cool. That is like the most awesome thing. And then here I am in Monster and come across something that's looking for a marketing manager, right? And in my head, that was the same person. I'm like, applying for that job, right? Go online, I learn everything about the companies that they sell for, etc. And I score an interview, which I was like, there's no way. I'm assuming you need a college degree in marketing, something like this. There's no way in hell they're taking an 18-year-old kid for this, but I'm out of my mind excited, right?
Right.
I'm still picturing gonna be Matthew McConaughey. I'm gonna be that guy. And so I go in for my interview in Cleveland in January. And it's a business professional environment, right? So you go in with your terribly fitting homecoming suit, with my oversized tie that was tied terribly. And I sit in front of a kid that's Don McConville, he had to be in his mid to late 20s maximum, not much older than I was, right? But living the dream, very executive office, all of the most awesome things there could have ever been in life. And he's like, boiler room closes me. keys across the desk kind of stuff. Like, you want to be me, here's what you got to do. All right. We start at the bottom, we work our way up. We're going to, kick you out of here right now. You're going to go on a second round interview with somebody in the field. You're going to go see what this looks like. And so in January in Cleveland, in a full suit with dress shoes on, I went and traipsed through 1.5 feet deep snow and went door to door to sell cable and internet for the company AT&T for their UVerse product. And it was
little did you know you were a marketing rep, a sales rep.
Exactly. Yeah. Sales wasn't even mentioned. There was no sales anything. I'm just marketing, right? So I'm like, all right, I got to go see
Don't you love
product is, like,
Yeah.
I have no idea what I'm doing, but I jump in this guy's, Pontiac Sunfire, silver Pontiac Sunfire, 1994. And the kid that takes me out, his name's Vince. He had to have been 21, 22 years old, right? Same thing. I still am oblivious that I'm being sold, to the hilt here. I still think I'm going to get a job sitting in an office back there. And I just got to go see what the entry level thing is, wherever, what the guys that were selling stuff is. So we go bang doors for an hour and a half, 2 hours. We make 2 sales. We, right before we come back to the office, me and Vince, stop at like a corner, a 4-way stop sign, and there's stop signs and stuff. And he picks up a snowball. He goes, if you can hit that stop sign, I think I can get you a job. And I'm still out of my mind. I don't know what the hell I was thinking looking back, right? I'm like, I was a baseball kid. Like, I played all the sports, no problem. Bam. Okay, cool.
Same here. I got
stop
this.
Sign, smash, got it. No problem. Dunk tank, cool. So we throw some snowballs for 10 minutes. We jump in the car, we go back. And Don, closes the same thing on me. He's like, hey, you want the job? You could have the job. We don't know if you could have the job. We're not sure if we want, we're interviewing 20 other people, blah, blah, blah. Do you have any questions? And essentially, I believe I remember saying the words, if that's what I got to do to be you, I'm in. Whatever.
I'm in.
I can do this. I can kill this. This job's totally easy, right? I went back home and I panicked out of my mind for like the next 4 hours. He's like, well, you'll get a call at 8:00 tonight if we're going to extend you a position. And it's like 8:10, 8:15. I'm like, damn it, I don't know what I did. How did I lose that? I thought I did so good. And like 8:30, I get a text message from Vince. He's like, hey, man, we want to extend you the job, blah, blah, blah. Fast forward, I say all that to say sales and marketing are the same thing, obviously. The ad executive is not your sales and marketing job. So it was not quite what I thought it was going to be. But I ended up obviously taking that job and did that job for about 2 years. But I did it well enough that they promoted me quickly. So 8 months into, banging doors for AT&T, I got promoted down to Kansas City and was in Kansas City as one of their managing licensed company operator reps for AT&T in the same product that we were selling in Cleveland. And met my wife down here, my current wife, and was here for probably about 8 months to a year. Same thing. I'm 20 years old. I just turned 21 when I was in Kansas City. So, pick up, move across the country, go door to door. $113 was our max commission. If we got a win back selling cable, phone, and internet, all 3 together, right? If it's a phone line, you make $23. It takes you 4 hours to do it. It was a terrible commission structure. And so I'm in Kansas City. We're selling, blah, blah, blah. This is 2008, 2009, right? Market goes in the toilet, and I get a phone call from my stepdad, who at the time ran a construction company back in Cleveland. So they did a lot of commercial construction. And so Dave's Cosmic Subs and Burlington Coat Factory was his 2 big clients that were doing build outs that were, taking old Kmarts and things of that nature that went out of business and then building them into a Burlington Coat Factory, right? So gut the inside, build out new walls, replace the floors, slap some lipstick on it and turn it into, what they had. And he called me out of the blue and he goes, hey man, I just had a bunch of contracts for Burlington, and they were getting ready to do like 13 Dave's Cosmic Subs down the coast of California. And they canceled all those projects. Every one of them went from, commercial has long runways, right? So, hey, they're coming up in the next 3, 6, 9 months. And they got just it's not happening anymore. And so, he's like, I guess he was in a position where he didn't necessarily need the money. But for him, he's like, hey, but I got a friend who has, is working with these insurance companies, and he's telling me that there's totally, while nobody else has money because the market's whatever, right? It doesn't matter because the insurance companies have all this cash that they have to leave set aside for, disasters and things like that. And so, we've had all these, windstorms and stuff. So shingles are blown off of houses. All you got to do is go talk to those homeowners and tell them, hey, your roof's damaged and you could potentially get a new roof. Your insurance company owes it, right? Back then, deductibles were $100, $250, maybe $500 on the high side. Like, you didn't see $1,000 deductible back then. And
Right.
so, it was the whole insurance restoration, get your stuff fixed for free was pretty much, that was the pitch. It was free. $100. Who couldn't afford $100 deductible, And so, but he's like, his job at that point, being an old guy, he was like Fred Flintstone on like hand chiseling like tablets of like estimates, right? I can hand write on a Mead pad. I don't do internet. I don't have a CRM. I don't have any kind of digital anything, let alone having the ability to go out and active direct market to customers, right? But that's what I was doing. What I'd only done. So he's like, hey, if you come back here and you can go talk to people that have, you drive through the neighborhood, you find people that have some damage, you just approach them right to their face and tell them they, you could maybe get their insurance to pay for it. He's like, I'll build it and deal with all the crews and all the construction stuff, and you deal with all the sales stuff, and we'll just split it all 50-50. So I was like, all right, cool. I'll be there.
Deal. Let's go.
So, back from the same old thing, right? So same thing I'm doing, only, construction project here is, a few $1,000s in profit. So, hey, commission wise, I went right to, all right, I can go bang doors all day for $130, or I can go bang all day and, look at $1,000 to $4,000 in commission. And we're like, yeah, that sounds way better, right?
Right.
We, at the time, my current wife we'd been dating for 6 months. So I'm like, I'm going to get rich. I got to go. I paid the apartment for the next, 2 or 3 months, whatever was left on my lease. And I'm like, I'm out of here. I'm going to Cleveland. I'll be back in like a week to pack up in a U-Haul and put everything together and see what's what and who's who. So you got plenty of time to figure out what you got to do in life. But I got to go back to Cleveland. And she was like, what do you mean you're going back to Cleveland? She's like, we're going. And I was like, oh, we only been together for like 6 months. I had no intention that you would actually be, participating in this, but all right. Like, hey,
wow, she's committed. Let's take her. Let's go.
Yeah, let's let it rip. I wasn't in a place where I was actively like, her and I had a problem and I was trying to like leave her. It was just, I had to go to work, and never in my life thought that she was going to pick up her life after knowing me for 6 months and, come across the country with me. At the time she had a young kid. Right. So she's got at the time Isaiah was 9-10 months old, like a baby, so that has all kinds of baby daddy mama drama and child parenting, like everything that you expect to not make it work. And she's like, no, yeah, I'm in, like, we'll figure it out. So I was like, all right, cool. So we moved back to Cleveland, and boom, bam, from then ever on for, from 21 and change, 22 years old to 37. Here we are banging doors, selling roof side and gutters, windows to homeowners in need.
I love that. Now, just the nugget for somebody trying to build a sales team, contractor who's trying to build out an organization. What did you learn in those days of selling cable, and what they were doing to build such a successful sales organization that can be applicable to construction?
100%. So I stole everything that I do. Everything and anything I do is stolen, like an artist. All right. I don't remember who said that, but it's once upon a time, pick a guy here, one of my coaches here, and they said, steal like an artist. So, one of the things that we've done and I've participated a lot with is a guy named Grant Cardone, and then he partnered with Brandon Dawson, and together they have, the Cardone Ventures thing. So, but with that, one of the things that they talk about a lot, and I didn't have words to this for a long time, and that's model, mimic, and master. And so, like you just said, how does AT&T apply to selling cable? Cable and internet apply to selling roofing? Well, at the end of the day, the process is the same. So, AT&T being $1 billion corporation, what we did was I literally took my pitch binder and 100% of my training material from AT&T and what we had designed there as that process, and subtracted out the product, inserted the new product, and maintained to the exact word frame what we did at AT&T. I said, I'm just some dumb construction kid coming here to sell some roofs, right? Some shingles.
Yep.
I sure as
Yep.
hell don't have whatever marketing background degree to go ahead and argue
Yep.
and or try to tell AT&T that I know better than them, right?
I did the exact same thing with Cutco, man. I was one of the top sales guys. I took their blue book and modeled it for my roofing company.
Exactly, man. You know, most people I think in that situation do that, but the most people I talk to in construction when we're in that like coaching mentor space is every one of them's like, I'm going to do it better. I can do this and I can do it better. I'm like, dude, stop. You only need to do it 50% as good as the best guy. Like quit acting like you got some secret sauce that nobody's ever figured out before.
Right, right. So that's really good. You modeled, mimicked, and mastered. Who's been a coach along your journey to help you succeed at such a high level in your restoration business?
So for me, I got really lucky. I was a lazy, terrible kid. That had very little ambition, very little drive. I was the sales guy who was doing his minimum numbers not get screwed with, right? And I essentially was running the company, partnering with my stepdad. So right 21, 22, 23 years old, sitting on the couch till 3 p.m. I go sell from 3 to 4:30, and I put up 2 deals a day, and I would be happy as a camper, right? $2,000 commission each. I'd be making 20 grand a week, working an hour and a half a day. But I was fat, I was lazy, I was out of shape, all the bad stuff. And so I ended up scheduling the company to take one other guy that I had hired, and we went to the SRC, so the Storm Restoration Summit that April Hall put on. I think it was one of her first ones. She was actually still married to what's his face back then, and in Dallas, Texas. And one of the speakers that was there was Grant Cardone. He was like her head speaker there, right, with the sales platform in Cardone University. So he's not a roofer guy, whatever, he's just purely a sales trainer back then, long before Cardone Ventures or Capital and all of his real estate stuff is that he's known for now was really even a thing. And knowing that he was coming, right? So they prep all the speakers, it's coming out. So I got lucky. I don't know what the hell it was, because I was a terrible student. College was not my thing. None of it was. But I did do research into who was going to be speaking at that event, and then made it a point to like go get their books and read their books before we went there. So I was familiar with who they were. And so jumping online at that time, Grant had, hundreds of hours, thousands of hours worth of YouTube content of real estate, sales, everything you could ever want to be able to have, right? Free, gave away the whole game that there was. And he had just finished writing the 10X rule. And so I read that book, and it opened my eyes to everything under the sun. Why I had given up on everything that I as a student, why I was a terrible student, why I was all of that, why I was lazy at work. And it allowed me to reframe my entire life. And this is before I even heard him talk, right? So we get to Dallas, we get him for the thing, and I'm always one that at that point, from then on at least, I've always been really early. So events at 10 o'clock start, 9 o'clock start. I'm there, doors open. I'm there 10 minutes after doors open, getting myself front row seat, and all of that. And his top sales guy or whatever was with him setting up the booth, and so they had their we're gonna sell you everything thing. And I walk in, I was like, aren't you? I'm like, I know you. You're Dave Robards. And so I walk up to him, and I had him actually sign the 10X rule book that I had, which at the time Dave had just won. Grant was doing this YouTube video TV show called Whatever It Takes. And essentially what he did was he ran a game show to win a job and come work for him. And so he could, run those guys through the ringer, make sure that they would do whatever it took in order to do it. And Dave had just won that. So in the process of getting ready to come to Dallas for this whole thing, right? I'm on YouTube. I see that. I watched, obviously the season of it is 4 or 5 videos for an hour, right? So nothing major, but it was just kind of cool thing. And I walk in and I'm like, dude, you're famous. You're the guy that just won that show. And Dave was, I guess, taken out of left field. He still tells me stories like this, or I was the first one that's ever asked him for an autograph or anything like that. He's been with Grant now for like 10 years. So now he's Grant's right-hand guy, and Grant pushes him out to, all kinds of things and gives him tons of opportunities. So tons of people want his interviews and his signatures and all that stuff nowadays. But he still tells me the story how I was the first one that ever asked him for that. But I say all that to say that then Grant came up, obviously melted everybody's face off, signed 3/4 of the room up for Cardone University and all that. We still are a company that trains with Cardone University here as an ability to get, some level of consistent, simple, repeatable process, procedural. Nowadays everybody can go to Lightspeed VT and call Brad up and say, hey, I want you to, build out a training platform, and I want my face to be the one that does it. I'm like, this guy's been doing it 20 years longer than I have. Like, I just use his stuff, same thing. We're going to insert the word car with roof. All right. If there's a question on that, we'll talk through it in the office. But otherwise, the basis of who and how to say things, it's already there. So no point to reinvent the wheel, right? Model, mimic, master. No point for me to even pay the money to mimic and master. It's already mastered, and we can use it just like it is. So Grant was integral in my early development in making sure that I'm always seeking mentorship, education, reading podcasts and reading in between appointments. Like the radio hasn't been a thing for a decade. I couldn't tell you songs or who's singing them, aside from whatever's newsworthy. Randomly you get a song, something in there, like what do they got right now? The Rich Men Over Richmond is a song right now that's making.
I honestly, I don't know. I don't listen to any radio, like zero, literally. I'm personal growth, audiobooks. So
Yep.
I'm curious, what is your favorite event to bring your salesman to out of all the events?
So this is a story, right? So I'd done events. I do events. I go to them. I speak at them now, right? And we'd always run competitions for me to do like an all-inclusive, right? I'm gonna fly you guys out. I spoke at GrowthCon in front of 10,000 people in Las Vegas 4 or 5 years ago on Grant stage, and I had flown 10 or 15 people from my office there for it, right? Bought them all tickets, put them up in a hotel, made sure that they had time in and out like the day or two before the event, so that they weren't crammed. And for most of the event, they were MIA, right? I got $50,000 floor seats that I paid to sit front row right there in front. Donald Trump's walking around, everything. And I look around, I'm keep looking. I'm like, I know where my guys are. I'm like, they're not, those seats are empty. There's 2 people sitting in them. There should be 15 there. And so I very, very, very much suggest, and I prep and I say, I will be, and you should be, and here's the place, and I can probably get you a discount, but I in no way, shape, or form bring or pay for my team to come to events like that ever again. So good news is most of them still do, right? But they pay for their own way. And now because they had to pay for their own $500 ticket, they sit in the seat.
I love that. Yeah, I can see that. And I can vouch for that, where they don't show up if you give it to them. People got to pay, because if you pay attention. Now, I'm curious about your structure, your organization, and in the model of growth. You have a visionary integrator, service manager, operations manager, and recruiting or growth manager. Can you walk us through, on a high level, not all the details, how your business looks like?
So I hired up until this year, we're a decade in of what I realized was my business operated, and we have always done 10 to 15 million dollars of rev a year, right? Like for us, that seems to be really easy. I know a lot of guys end up in like that 1.5 to $3 million range and they get stuck. But $10 million was always really easy for us. But most of it, honestly, my structure prior to this year was I hired 15 to 25 executive assistants, and I was the only employee of the company. I handled everything. I would come into the office at 4 a.m. I would never go home before 8, 9 p.m. And that was what my life looked like for a long time. I made a boatload of money because we had less overhead since I was wearing all of the hats. But also because I had integral processes in each customer. I was the one that was able to very quickly, efficiently solve any problem that came up on any of them, right? What was the contract? I don't know. Well, I was the one that was sitting with the customer 99% of the time. So, doing that final piece of the puzzle, pick out a color, schedule the project, right? So when there was anything that came up, most of the time I was very easy to get an answer to. So instead of actually leading and allowing my team to grow, what I ended up doing was handcuffing them terribly. And them having to run every decision that was being made as far as customers, clients, projects directly through me on whatever the question was to get a quick answer. I could answer it in 30 seconds. So, fortunately we were able to keep the volume moving. But this year we hired an integrator. We got a COO. Took a buddy of mine from a pharmaceutical technology company. So like a completely left field industry, obviously. In one of the network marketing, not marketing, but networks that I'm in, is Apex. It's one of Ryan Stewman's groups, right?
Yep.
And
Yep.
so in there's a handful of EOS operators. So
I love
we
EOS. I live off EOS. That's how my business is ran.
we ran, so right, I've read the book Traction and then Rocket Fuel, and never really kind of put all the pieces together with all of that. So we go out, and one of the fly-ins were out there talking, and they started talking about going to the website and taking the actual test to see, integrator, visionary, where you land on it. Of course, I land all visionary. I'm a terrible integrator. I'm like, well, that makes sense on why I cannot train. I suck at training, right? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
grant stuff. Well, because I would probably do it terribly. I can do
Yeah.
all of it, functioning all myself, but physically recreating it and doing the systems of that, not so good at. And so he had some issues kind of with where he was at and all that. He was actually on a sales position, so not even operationally, but he ends up testing at 98 as an integrator. I was like, oh wow. Because there's 10 visionaries to one integrator, so the likelihood that you find like your wife, your marital version of you for your business and the integrator place is actually like super rare to be able to put that piece together. You find people that are more integrator, more operationally based than you, but to find somebody that's a yin to your yang, talking to some of the EOS guys is like, not our everyday thing. So anyway, we hired that person, right, got him in here as a COO. My wife is our CFO, so she deals with all the money stuff. And so now we have an official 3 prongs. There's 3 pieces that really need to be had in every roofing or construction business, small service-based business. And that's going to be your sales, your financial piece, who's tracking the money, making sure the money gets paid, and then your production piece, right? So how does the project get installed? How does the project get sold? And then how do we collect the money and make sure that we're not going to jail for evading the IRS? And so we have all 3 of those pieces, which has been game changing for me. And I've finally 15 years in, figured out how to do what is the most use of my time.
I love that. That's so true. In any business, you have to have the visionary, the integrator, service operations, and growth. And if you have those components, then you can buy back your time. Speaking of buying back your time, there's a book called Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell. If you haven't read this one, Josh, phenomenal book. Talks about the replacement ladder and how to replace yourself and how to get out of the business. We have the money, so we might as well make this business that it brings in more people, and it's like a machine that produces a bigger machine. So that way we can go focus on acquiring other businesses and more real estate and having more time with our family. Now, curious, what is your intake process as far as, because I was talking to a guy who does 30 million a couple days ago. That podcast will be released soon. His name's Jack Chan. And he has a 7-level intake process, like where, you get the call, then you take it, give it to sales, then you give it to production, then you give it to quality control after it's done, then you give it to HR to make the customer feel good. And then, you have your executive. Curious, your intake process and what it is.
For clients or for new salespeople?
Yeah, that's let's talk clients, then let's talk new salespeople.
So onboarding for a client, of course, right? So sales process, we bang a door, find somebody that has damage, run a lead. First thing we do is obviously put it in the CRM. Data is dollars. So we identify the who, what, where, when, right? Email, phone number, all of that, so that it can be put in the CRM. CRM can then run it through auto-sequenced responses and follow-up and all of that, depending on what happens from the lead from that point forward. inspection, who, what, where, when, what's going on. We're checking for any damage, if any exists. If it's a retail project, we're inspecting decking and all the things to make sure there's no surprises. One of the biggest things that customers experience from construction companies is that surprise piece, right? We want to close everybody on the bottom dollar or find a way to get to the bottom dollar while we kind of already know that there's going to be change orders. So we know that we're going to, hey, we walked on some spongy wood. Well, I better not tell her that until it's torn off, because once it's torn off, she can't fire me. So I'll get my other $5,000 I need then, which then starts a terrible snowball of, conversations with angry homeowners then, or people that physically can't even afford it, which it's just, the tactic of it is not fantastic. So we find out anything that's there and we flush it all out. We make sure we have a conversation about, hey, here's your best case scenario, what we're looking at. Here's some things that we don't know for sure that could potentially pop up during your project. You want to proceed with everything. Of course, we have financing. Cash is king, but we have financing available if you'd like to proceed that way. We get a deposit, select a color, schedule them in production. Production calls them back up after within 72 hours of the sales guy leaving there to recap the contract. Make sure that there was no soft close stuff or verbally committed to things. So we go back through the contract, exactly what we have as a work order. And, if the customer brings anything up that was outside of that scope, well, Steve said he'd add, elbows on the bottom of my downspouts right now so that they didn't shoot water across the shingles laterally. I wanted to run downhill. Okay. That was $100 worth of downspout, elbows, not a big deal. Roofing crew can definitely do it, but it is not reconciled on your estimate here. So let me go back to sales guy, make sure if he did commit to that, did we charge for it, or am I taking it out of somebody's commissions or what, so that we can facilitate making sure that the expectations that were set at the sales table then during production transfers. Because I think as you would probably parrot this in construction, that's probably where we suck the most, is that handoff piece from sales to production. So a lot of companies operate in that space where the sales guy is also the production guy, which has less things that you can drop because they're the same guy that sat at the kitchen table and told them what they were going to get. So then if you promise something and in process of building it, you have a question with it, the homeowner is going to call the same person that made that decision, and they're going to obviously have to sort through it. But if you operate like a proper business that has departments that do things, right? Sales guys are good at sales. They're terrible at organization and all the things that have to go in with running the entire piece of the pie. So if you compartmentalize that when you hand it off to the next person, making sure that everything, proper expectations are set, that's like the hardest thing to really get good at and find a way systematically to make sure that the paperwork is in line, the CRM's properly updated, and there are no gray things. Making your contract as black and white as it is and saying, this is what we're doing. There is nothing weird on here. We're still struggling through that piece on our end of it. A lot of it comes to just tons and tons and tons of hours between reading through what the sales guys offered to looking at photos of the house and going, what could the crew have a question about here? Are we running anything where we're not explicitly saying we are not doing X, Y, or Z piece of the project? But the more that we figure that piece out before we go to the house, the more that while we're at the house doing the work, that all the work gets done. We don't then have to follow up with punch list guys or sending crews back to houses to button up ambiguous pieces, parts of, contracts. And I think that's probably one of the biggest, talking to a lot of people in the industry that have, pain points there, is really making sure that what was represented at the kitchen table here in their contract, in their piece, that none of it was verbally authorized or written or question answered when they had it, that never made its way into writing on the contract or into the CRM or into a work order or communicated properly back to production.
I love that. So with that being said, obviously from sales to production, that within 72 hours, they call just to make sure there was no verbal deals that were given that weren't on the contract. Now, that leads me to, once the job is done, you're getting this, that, and the other done. Is there another step in your process for quality control, or another step in your process for HR and customer satisfaction?
Absolutely. So multiple touches. Once the work's completed, there's 3 other human beings that touch the job and speak to the customer at some point or another. Emails come directly from the CRM, right? That look like they come from the sales guy and office staff. Hey, your job project's been completed. Thank you very much. Your expectations coming up. And the next steps are X, Y, and Z. Phone call has had, right? Our goal is to quality control while the crew is there. So quality control stops out in the morning. They stop out around about lunchtime and then 4 o'clock-ish in the evening, right? So when the job's getting done, we're doing a final walkthrough right then and there with the crew there to make sure everything's done. Hey, we got, a couple step tins here that are out of sequence. Hey, we got to make sure we fix that right now before we pack up and leave and then have to worry about coming back. At that moment, we also try to get a certificate of completion, meaning we walk through with the homeowner doing that quality control inspection to try to get them to
Is
walk.
Is your PM doing that or your salesperson?
Quality control technician. So yeah, there's an on-site project manager that's going to manage all of that. Sales guys are expected to stop in and say hi, right? Get some cool pictures for Facebook, Instagram, talk to some of the neighbors, but in the actual production process, they are completely hands off.
Okay. So talking about your salespeople and getting them to do some Facebook posts and some videos, do you have anything like where it's, how have you made that not necessarily mandatory, but made it to where it's like a high priority, or is it mandatory?
So we train on it, right? We train on it. I have a very heavy social media presence. And so I think in part of leadership is, I've always been the boss leader, poster child, so for me to lead them on social media is for me to have a properly process social media page and web presence to then say, hey guys, you should be modeling and mimicking what I'm doing here, right? We steal like an artist on everything else that we're doing. Use me as your lighthouse on how we're supposed to be doing this as we move forward, right? Make sure that you're talking to these groups and you're going to RIA meetings and you're networking with all of these people. And then while you're there, you're taking pictures of them. You're tagging them in your posts on it so that you now are tapping into their network without them having to actually, pimp your deal. You don't have to say next gen, blah, 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 because you're going to say it on their page. So you're not relying on them to refer you back because most people's Instagram, Facebook pages are like auto posted, right? If you're tagged in it, it automatically goes on their page. So as long as you can put all the stuff together, not make it look like an ad, but be, hey, I'm working with Mike over here, blah, blah, blah. Here's his house, or and tag them in the deal. Now, when somebody else, neighbor may not see it or have asked or needed some, a service that we provide, but they're going to see, Mike's page and his new roof and him sitting there with a picture of a sales guy on there. And without having to ask him for a referral to it, and then him having to say, oh yeah, I just had my stuff done by this guy, call them. We can skip 3 steps of that and simplify the process because they just had already seen it. So now they can go ahead and click the link right through to the guy that originally posted it. And now we're generating leads in an area where, the neighbor or friend or family friend who also needs a roof put on or a roof estimate or has a roof that's leaking. Without having to actually physically ask for the referral, we have the ability to kind of push our way into referring ourselves through their actual network.
It's crucial because your net worth equals your network. And what you're teaching your salespeople to do is take the photo with the homeowner, write a little post, tag that homeowner. So then when that person, that homeowner's friends get on and look at their Facebook page, they see, your company and the sales reps information right there and then. You mentioned REI meetings and other groups. Can you elaborate a little bit further of what groups you're talking about for your salespeople to go to?
Anybody that has ownership in a building or a product or a piece that we have, right? If I'm a pizza guy, I'm talking to people that have mouths that like pizza, right? If I'm a roofer, I'm looking at people that have houses that they live in or buy real estate or flip real estate or anything to that nature, right? Loan agents, kind of all of those pieces. And the beauty is that the marketplace that we're in here in the last 2 or 3 years, like 5 years plus ago, there was only a handful in each city, right? So you go into a big metropolitan area and it was like once a month, there's a happy hour and real estate people get together here, right? All the agents or insurance agents, etc. But then masterminding kind of became a thing where coaching was a thing and podcasts were a thing. And the ability for your average Joe to be able to do kind of what we're doing right now became wildly more acceptable in the marketplace. It wasn't, you have to be famous to have a podcast, right? It's like, hey, anybody can have a podcast. Put your stuff together, get a Rode mic here, right? Boom, bam, 2 clicks later, we can upload it, send it to a VA in China. They can clip it all together and make it sound super professional for $1.95, and we can upload it ourselves to wherever it's going to go.
You're going to have to introduce me to that VA that does it all for $1.95, baby.
$1.95 an hour. All right. You got a couple hours in it.
Okay.
But so the piece of it is that it's just so much easier, the access to the information is so much easier. So now there's so much more people that are doing it. So it's not necessarily always on like a super high level, but there are more of them. So it used to be 1 or 2 very more well-ran events, right? With like a proper like catered lunch at a Hilton that was with a speaker and it had a structure to it. Now you get a lot more that are, in between, from that level up there all the way down to the in between, where it's just like, hey, I know a guy who knows a ton of people and everybody likes him. So he throws a thing together, every other Tuesday at this bar. And there's usually 20 or 30 people that show up there and kind of, have a few drinks and have an appetizer and shoot the shit about X, Y, and Z. Right. And it's like,
Nice.
all right, well, who is there? Are those, what is the marketplace of that? Okay, those are 2 people that are really going to do a ton of business and a bunch of other people. All right, well, they have networks that have people that have people that have people. So making it a point, if it's free, to go there and not just get drunk and eat the food. Your point is to go there and actually social
Shake
media,
hands, shake hands,
kiss babies,
his baby, make 20 contacts, new phone in your phone, real intentional, smile, charisma. And people need to understand in the sales game, like, you have to make them feel special. Imagine they got a necklace that says, make me feel special. And if you do that, people will just give you the deals.
Yeah, 100%. So then it's a matter of just being the guy, and then also showing up, right? So pick your 1 or 2 a week that you're going to try to go to and spend some time going to them regularly to where you're a regular. That means that when you're there and they got other people that come in and somebody asks, hey, I need a guy it's a guy, those circles also operate just like your buy, sell, trade sites online, right? All the little neighborhood Facebook groups. Moms get in there, dads get in there, and they're like, hey, I have XYZ problem and I need somebody to fix it. Who you got for me? No, nobody goes to the internet now. So like, it was originally, the yellow pages and the book. And then after that, it was Google. Now it's straight to the Facebook marketplace in that space to say, who do you know? What do you know first? And then when they get a recommendation of 5 companies, now they cross-reference that back with Google. Obviously, the phone book's irrelevant. It's been irrelevant for a decade.
Joshua, now that you have your systems in place, what is your role as a CEO or owner?
So as a CEO and owner of a company, of any kind of company, my job from day one should have been and is now, my job is to assemble the Avengers. And that is the easiest, most real shit there is when it comes to building a company. The difference between a 1 and a 2 and a $3 million company, or a $10 million company and a 20 and 25 and $30 million company, is having leadership that recognizes the fact that even if I can sell $5 or $10 million a year worth of business, that's all the company can ever do, because there's literally nothing I can think about besides keeping that straight in the space of doing that business. And so if I want a 20 or 25, 50, $100 million company, I have no choice but to find awesome human beings that have the ability to problem solve, are willing to do whatever it takes, and want to have a ton of opportunity as the company moves and grows, to then go build them and build their networks and build their net worth and make them rock stars, because I'm only one person, and even if I'm Tony Stark, I'm only so cool, right? I need to go get Captain America and Wonder Woman and all the other pieces put together here to properly have a chance of taking down, Thanos.
And assembling the Avengers. Competition is at the bottom and collaboration happens at the top. And once you get to our level, you just want to give, you want to collaborate, you want people to have as pieces of the pie. And that's how, Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk that did it. They didn't want 100% of it. They wanted their slice of it. And that's why they've thrived so much. What's your superpower?
Ooh, my superpower. my COO and my wife think that I am mentally ill. My
My,
superpower is
my people think that about me too.
when everything seems to be on fire, right? Staff are having problems with X, Y, or Z. A customer's pissed about something and doesn't want to pay us, whatever the case is. Um, it like I don't lose sleep. I don't stress about it wildly. Like I'm robotic in the piece where it doesn't affect me. Like, and I'll like laugh about it, and so like it's that like insane laugh where like shit's on fire and people are screaming and yelling, hooting and hollering, and I just like I giggle about it, and they both look at me like, "What is wrong with you? What like you shouldn't be you should be panicking right now." And I'm like
What's the challenge that you're facing? Something that's like an obstacle that you need to get better at or overcome.
keeping firing people quicker, getting
That's a
rid
good one.
of getting rid of the gangrene and the frostbite, right? You got to cut off a toe or you lose the foot. We as a company organization, I let the tail wag the dog when we started opening, and I moved to Kansas City here to open new locations because I essentially scaled myself out of the business in a way that I scaled myself out of a lot of relationships, which then allowed some negative office not so good things to kind of brood its way in and fester, in the rumors and all of the stuff, like, oh, we're abandoning the company, we're doing this. It's like, no, we're growing the company. I can't only focus on one location if we're going to have 10. And so at some point I need to move on to the next thing, and what got me here won't get me there. And so some people feel like, in the growth process of that crabs in a bucket thing, where like they just want it to be the same 10 or 15 people forever, and like it's us against the world, where it's like, no, I'm going to go get like another 100 people here to put on the team against the world. And in doing so, some people feel left out or left in the past, and it can have a very negative impact in your company.
Letting people go who don't fit the vision or the culture, so important. I can attest. I need to do that as well. Curious, opening up new markets. Talk about that. How'd you do it? What are the steps? Is there licensing requirements? Go.
So it all depends on the who, what, and where, right? And even the why, I guess. Part of mentorship here with Cardone Ventures and things was we went through their platforming process and identifying, using tons of data to identify market saturation points, frequency of storm markets, frequency of other things, quantity of roofers that are in there, ages of roofs. So we have 16 states and locations here where, we can essentially watch the weather. And when a storm hits and we're prepared administratively as a company to expand, I can fly into that market very quickly. I can identify very, very likely a baby boomer that's in his 60s that wants to, get a nice paycheck and go sit on the beach for the rest of his life, and go buy and acquire a local company that's got a handful of employees that are still being run, by a 20-year-old owner. So probably not to the top of the line of technology. There's probably not a ton of advertising, marketing, a bunch of other like little things that can be done very quickly and efficiently to, take a $2 or $3 million company that's like, that's all they've ever known, and turn them into a $15 million location, in under 90 days. And so having the ability to fly in and do all of that has to do with, data and information.
I like that. And with your current release of your new location, is that what you did? Did you acquire a company, or did you find existing people, or did you set it all up from scratch?
Oh man, I wish I could have done it the way that I have it in my head in Kansas City here. So I moved to Kansas City in 2020 with my wife, and I was sort of retired. You know, we have the office in Cleveland, like I said, and we had it set up in a way that was and will. It's always done $10+ million. It's super easy. It's a cash cow. It prints money, right? Why would I mess that up? Well, because I was 34 years old and I was incapable of being retired. There's only so many rounds of golf that you can play, or like, I don't do video games. I don't watch TV. So like, I'm gonna work out 10 hours a day. Like, it was weird, right? So
You need something to build. Yeah.
So we got back to the deal. I also do real estate, so it was a lot of soul searching in the what I want to do, where I want to do it. I don't want to play like a flip game. So we're like, well, you're really good at this, and why don't we just do that again, right? So I bought a building here in Kansas City, and the plan was to like actually do what we platformed, right? So when we platformed the company, that was in 19, to be able to expand and do all of that. And then we kind of went, okay, COVID happened, we slowed down and moved, and we're enjoying some of our life, and kind of aborted mission on the original platform. So we went back to the drawing board. We're like, okay, we could expand, we can get back on path and go do that. So we got a nice big corporate office here where we could essentially bring all of the core competencies of the company. So each location should not have, if you're expanding, you shouldn't have 10 different locations with 10 different AR departments, 10 different production departments. Yeah. Like there's no way to keep track of and keep any level of consistency from office to office if every office you have somebody there that has their own opinion on what they're modeling and mimicking, right? Even if you give them the best of the best sales training and operational awareness, they're still going to have their opinion on how they want to do it, and it will be disseminated not uniformly. So
decentralized command basically is what you're saying. You have your headquarters that does all the administration, the billing, the financials, the supplementing. And then, but what you have out in Kansas is a sales organization. Am I hearing that right?
Yes, it's only backwards. So in Kansas, we brought all of the organizational efficiencies here. So here we have all of our accounting, our ARAP, all of our production, anything that has to do with logistics that doesn't do it. So essentially, we've identified if I don't have to physically ever see a customer, I have no reason to be out of an office in a quote unquote remote location, i.e. in Cleveland, in Tennessee, in Oklahoma, right? I can do all of those pieces here from Kansas City. I can handle all of my logistics with my deliveries from every state, manufacturer, suppliers, all of that. And we found that doing so means that we don't have to stick with necessarily like roofing and siding industry people. I don't need somebody that knows production, how to run crews and order materials in roofing, because construction isn't filled with the most educated of educated people. It's not a sexy industry, right?
Yep.
So you take people
blue collar workers, we do hot, sweaty, dirty work and make clean money, right?
Yeah, so we got a lot of people that are like willing to do some hard work, but aren't necessarily always the most organized or efficient, or conversations like that. So what we figured out was like, cool, like I can go take somebody who's like super logistic minded, like out of a trucking business that handles 100 routes with 300 trucks that are all over the country, and keeping track that their deliveries are where they're supposed to be, kind of like air traffic control, and put that person in a position where they're going to manage a CRM and make sure that materials are being delivered and crews are dispatched appropriately and all of that. And it's actually, aside from the quote unquote roofing piece to it, it's the exact same job. And so now we can take people that are really good at already like a core concept, a core process, and stick them where they're going to flourish, opposed to trying to take somebody who knows how to go to Home Depot and talk to the supplier and, knows what a shingle is to be able to order the right amount of it, but probably isn't the most organized person to be able to manage doing that task over and over and over and over and over again, repeated the right way, the same way, and do it efficiently. The efficiency piece is really what we found. So we bring all those competencies here to Kansas City. So anything that doesn't have to touch a customer in any way, shape, or form is always handled here at a corporate office.
You're living in Ohio or Kansas now?
Kansas City. Yep.
You were living in Ohio all those previous years though, right?
2020, we moved to Kansas City.
How do you like it?
Kansas City, I love. So right when I got started, I moved to Kansas City. So Overland Park, in 2008, 2009, when I moved to Kansas City to sell AT&T, I'm literally like the full circle of my life was when in 2020, when we moved back here to build our house, they didn't have what we wanted available. So we built and got an apartment for a year. I stayed in the same apartment complex in 2020 as I did in 2009 when I was here for a year.
Love that. Curious, what CRM you're using?
CRM, we're in AccuLinks.
Okay. And why did you choose Kansas over Oklahoma or Tennessee? I think those are the three that you mentioned, or two that you mentioned.
My wife and her family are here in Kansas City.
Okay. Based off data, it's a good market for what you do.
Kansas City gets destroyed by hail every single year. Every 2 years maximum. So storm market wise, it's like third or fourth to, Dallas or Colorado. You got Colorado Springs and all of that. So more or less anything that comes storm weather wise up from the southwest coming through either that Dallas weather comes from Dallas, comes right through Kansas City, weather comes from Colorado across the plains into Kansas City. And then every once in a while we even get stuff that comes, north out of Nebraska down into Kansas City. So being here for 3 years, it's one of those where we're not, everybody thinks Kansas, you think tornadoes, and you start thinking like, well, their houses are completely destroyed at that point. Like, no, this year we've had 5 or 6 storms that produced hail that was roughly tennis ball size.
Damn, that's pretty gnarly. That's like Dallas, Colorado stuff right there. Okay, okay. I'm curious.
It has been a crazy year for storms, right? We have an El Nino set up in the oceans. So I think that's driving a lot of the weather that we have here. It has definitely been a crazy year for hail and guys getting whacked over and over again.
What do you think is the projection of the future of this industry? Do you think they're going to be selling more insurance companies, pushing more ACV policies, increasing deductibles, making us have to go retail? What are your thoughts on those conversation pieces?
Yeah, at the end of the day, I'm not putting my eggs in the basket of the insurance company. I'm in the industry where the insurance company right now is physically the one who pays me, but I'm in the industry of helping homeowners restore their house from when they have damages to it. And so even if the policy is crap and it pays for nothing, and you had 4 pieces of siding blow off your house, right? Vinyl siding, aluminum siding, whatever. And manufacturers aren't going to stop changing the products every 4 to 8, 10 years, right? Because that's the only reason they continue to sell more products, is because you, a homeowner, right? Somebody that owns their home, in no way wants to have their house mismatched and look terrible, right? We have to come home to it every day. We're going to look at it. You have to see it. It's not like you can kind of out of sight, out of mind it, shut a door upstairs to the attic that you never go into and just be like, I don't need to remodel that bathroom because no one ever uses it. You pull up to the front of your house and it's got mismatched siding on it because the manufacturer stopped making it 5 years ago, and your insurance policy only pays you for actual cash value or direct physical loss, meaning instead of matching the house and making it whole because the product's no longer made, they're going to pay for the handful of panels. So no longer, the insurance policy doesn't matter anymore. At some point, that homeowner is going to do something to rectify that situation and make sure their house doesn't look like crap, because that, like, one of the big things is in human nature that we are is proud of the place that we live in. We have pride with that, especially as a man. And so I don't think that we're pigeonholed anyway. If I was paid by the insurance company and I was one of these like preferred contractors and I only cared about what the insurance company did, I might be a little bit more nervous, right? Because there's 1,000 companies that are all going to come and try to compete for the same swath of business then. But my job is with the person that owns the home. My customer will always be the one that actually is there. And as long as we provide options for financing and all of the other things, people buy cars that they can't afford every single day to keep up with the Joneses. They sure as hell are going to make sure that they reside their house or replace their roof so it's not all mismatched and ugly and, and all of those things here at the same point.
Now, as you know, I teach contractors how to win lucrative government contracts. And I'm curious, what characteristics, or better yet, what process do you have in your current business that you give your salespeople or your estimator to win large contracts? Not the 20, 30, 40, $50,000 roofs, but larger, 150, 200, 500 plus $1,000 deals.
So we don't do a ton of that. We just got done doing a roof on a Hilton. We focus on the other pieces. Lack of business disruption, right? So the complicated pieces, you have a dichotomy between when you start talking about big stuff like that, right? Because most of the time you're talking to another business owner or an investor of some kind, which means all they care about is the bottom number. Not all they care about, but most of what they care about is the ROI. So providing value in the ROI of that sometimes comes down to the lack of business interruption. So, hey, you can cut your bill $40,000 and find Stevie's Roofing over there, and they're going to take six weeks to put your roof on, right? Can you afford to not be in business for those 6 weeks? Because you can't have barricades up and have shingles flying all over the place because they're going to blow into people's cars. You're going to have all kinds of other problems. So we don't really change our estimating process when you start going into the commercial space like that. And it probably does, because you're in a wholesale price where we have the ability, if that was my core competency, we would have the ability to probably win more of those, like you said, $250,000+ projects. But I'd rather walk away from a less profitable project overall and, do 3 of those a year instead of 20, and just maintain the process that we have in the residential space of it, and make an appropriate margin on, per dollar on every job. I find that, minus probably the government side of things, right? Government side, you're less of that piece of it. So I'm sure you got the
Yeah.
hack to that.
Yeah, for
But
sure. Profit margins are great, man. I mean, they spend $1 billion every day, and there's only 25,000 contractors. You can get that information off sam.gov that are going after that $1 billion. So that means when there's less competition, the margins are higher, and they don't really care. Like, they have to spend the money. They've got 1 million properties, and if they don't spend the money by September 30th, then they may not get that the following year from Congress. So
Right.
there's been many deals where I was definitely not the low bidder, but I had everything that they needed in my package, and I made 80 grand in 4 days on a project.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think I want to be, if I could choose, what I hear the White House pays for toilets. If I could just be a plumber and only be the toilet guy for the White House, I feel like I'd be really rich.
One of our coaching clients won a contract, and this is a roofer, by the way, because you don't have to have any license because they have eminent domain. So even though he's a roofer, he doesn't have to have a plumbing or HVAC license because of their eminent domain. So if you know how to find the best sub in that town, you can get the contract and just be the middleman and hand it to them and use their license. $95,000 to change a 6-ton unit. A 6-ton unit on the side of your house
Right.
that cost $8 grand.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did a deal in Ohio to change out 4 lights at a base for $96,000.
They had to be super special lights.
They were heating lights inside of a garage to keep everybody warm,
Right.
but didn't cost very much to get that job done.
We'll have to talk offline on that one. I'll have to follow the link below to get all of his top secrets on government contracts.
Love that. Curious, what's the last book you've read from cover to cover and the lessons that you learned from it?
Well, it was funny that you had mentioned Buy Back Your Time, because I'm literally currently in the process of that book at the moment.
Okay, so you're audio booking it, right? Now, I want to challenge you, Josh, to actually buy the book, because it is so good that when you're listening to it, you it's one of those like EOS, like that book, the EOS method, I can't remember, Traction, that you actually have to get a pen and paper and take notes and print out the package that he gives you. Like, it is so good, because you're at a level now where optimize and systemize and make it better. And there's some good nuggets in there. I highly recommend you buy the book.
I have the book as well. Yeah. Anytime I get anything on Audible, I always add it to the library. So whether or not I physically crack the book during the Audible or wherever I'm at, right? If I'm in the truck, I'm not a lot of it. There's overlap. I'll go back and revisit, but I end up, the ones that are good, I probably consume twice a year. And the relooping back to, it's like you start to do an Audible on one, you're like, this is terrible. Like, this is just regurgitated crap from somebody else, right? It still goes up on the shelf, but then you don't waste a ton of time like doubling down onto it. But stuff like Buy Back Your Time, Traction, we've done a bunch. Traction's a hard book. It's actually
hard. It's a hard, like, when you first get into it, like you have to like study it like you're trying to pass a law exam or something. It's got a lot of information. What's another book that, or 2 or 3, that you have to go back to every couple of years or every year?
I read the 10X rule every single year, probably twice.
Funny you say that. I got that right here on my desk.
Dude, that book That book will change anybody that's listened to this's life. You're in a place where you're like, man, it just seems like I could never get lucky enough to get to that next level, that next thing, and I just don't know how I'm going to get there. That book will change it, because I can guarantee you, probably more than likely, at least 50% chance here, you're just not doing enough effort, or you're not understanding how much more effort it was going to take. Understanding that book teaches you just the simple piece of, most people exert 2 to 5 times more effort than they thought. Man, this is hard, and I've pushed myself farther than I thought it was going to be by 2 or 3 times, right? And you're like, okay, cool. And then you're like, man, at that 4th time of effort, you're like, this is insane. And by the 5th one, you're like, all right, it's never going to happen, I give up. And the reality is that you got to get to like 10 plus times, and just keep, like, it's never there. As long as you keep taking at bats, you'll have opportunity to get on base. If you stop swinging the bat, you're going to have a rough day.
You play baseball still?
Coach my son's team. Yep, I still play baseball with him. I haven't found.
I'm in a men's league myself. Hard ball, fast pitch, wooden bat, and it is very competitive.
I haven't found a Roy Hobbs league here in Kansas City yet. So I played Roy Hobbs all through in Ohio when I was in Ohio. Wood bat, same thing, hard ball. I played in college originally. So,
Dude, Josh, get into it, man. There's so many people in there that will buy from you. I've sold so many roofs to my teammates, and I'm telling you, it's a great little place to network, get away from the kids, and just, do the man thing.
I love it. I love it. We, same thing with like soccer, trying to get into a soccer league to keep fit with that. So I hate the gym. I'm a fit guy, but I I hate it. So if I could play baseball to get my 2 days a week of like workout, or run around and play soccer to keep cardio up, I can work out 1 or 2 days a week and be happy with that, lifting weights, and then just go play sports, and I'd have a lot more fun with it. But I coach my kids stuff now, so trying to keep up with that. We just had my son's first game of like kid pitch. Nice. And so we had my videographer there. That was 2 nights ago, and so we had videographer there, mic'd him up, mic'd me up, did the whole coach thing, and kids say the darndest things at baseball. So I'm interested to see what ends up happening on that one. We did that 1.5 years ago at one of like the machine pitch games.
How old are your kids?
15, 14, and 9.
Congrats, man. I got a 6'2" and one on the way. Hey, before we wrap this up, curious, recruiting. Talk about your process for recruiting and who's involved in that, how that works, getting them onboarded. More importantly, how are you recruiting?
So I found through Apex, I was brought to me as a website called WizeHire, WIZEHIRE, which essentially is driven, I think, by AI, and it just cross posts your job ads. So when you make an advertisement for a job posting, instead of posting it to Indeed and Monster and all the other job boards, WizeHire, it disseminates it to all of them at one time. So you make one post there and it goes everywhere. But it is also driven with some of that hiring AI to help, make sure the job posting, you can type up whatever job description you want, and then it will actually go in and say, hey, this is great, but we suggest you change the title of it to this. And we think that you could tweak this to this. It still says the same thing, but this would make more people click on your ad. And once upon a time, I was like, screw you, bot. I know what I'm doing. I'm going to write what I want. Until I wasn't. And I said, all right, whatever, you must know better than I do, because nobody clicked on my shit. And when here, we've had absolute fantastic results with that, and getting, salespeople, etc., general manager applications. It might also just be the state of the union in the world, and where we're at is that people are finally starting to try to want to work and get back into a career. I think there was a time here,
for a minute, nobody wanted to work. Remember that?
Yeah, when the money was prevalent and was flowing from the government teat, man, nobody wanted nothing. It was just like, hey, I'm going to collect my check,
yeah.
I think I want to be retired. I can play golf, and hey, I make $1,000 less a month, but you know what? I can live on that. Where that money's fortunately dried up, and I think people maybe just people like I did, they played enough golf and they're bored, and they're like, I want to get back to getting some meaning and some purpose, because we have had a lot more people,
quality people
been open and reaching out and are looking for opportunity.
Curious about so you put a WizeHire. I'll have to figure out how to spell that, because that sounds interesting. The process, they come in, they go through the interview, then they get into the training. What's that training look like? What's the organization look like? You have a sales manager internally and then a field manager or a bunch of leaders training the new people. What's that onboarding look like?
Our sales process is very pyramid-esque in that aspect, that everything flows up to a leader. A leader is going to run a small team. Through WiseHire, we have now renamed teams to the word district, because apparently everybody wants to become a district manager. And so you could say, hey, cool, you go through the entry level, you work your way up, just like I did at AT&T, right? Go out there, I'm going to be a marketing manager, which is really sales. Still got to start at the bottom in order to know what you're doing, in order to get up there to manage that team, right? So we hire and interview people as district managers now in training. They start at the entry level position, so that we can teach them how to, intro, short story, presentation, close, rehash, 5 steps to a conversation with a client at the door, or on the phone, or on a lead. How do we walk through that process? And then, they get an opportunity to move up and learn how to talk to insurance adjusters and agents and things like that, to make sure that the claims are being paid properly, and that, we win the job there, to then finally at the top of the deal, now they're an actual district, and we start letting them have the opportunity to train other people through that process. Our onboarding is a 5-day process. Day 1 is essentially 100% shadow. Get them in the office, love on them a little bit, let them feel part of the culture, let them feel part of the team. Run them around a little bit on that side. Day 2 is going to be nothing but intro. So then from day 2 on, we don't move them. It's essentially learning the 5 steps to a conversation without moving on to the next step until you've mastered, or at least shown competency in one step. So intro, hey, I'm Josh. I'm at Next Gen Restoration. We're doing some work in the area here, and notice that you had some damage. You happen to notice that. So until they can spit that out without fumbling all over themselves, we don't move on to the next step. So if that's 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, however long it takes them there to get through that, then we move on to the next step. All right, cool. You have noticed that you had some damage out there. Do you have anybody working with you on that? Have you looked into the insurance company? Have you had any other process to this? No, I haven't done anything yet. Okay, cool. Well, just from what we see out here at the ground, there's a possibility that your insurance company might owe you for stuff. We can only see so much here, and what we see here is, piqued our interest. Inspection on your property only takes about 10-15 minutes. I have a ladder here with me right now. I can, do that right now. There's no obligation, no fee, no nothing to it. We're just going to gather up some photographs for you here and let you know 2 things. Either you have more damage than we could see at the ground here driving by in a truck at 30 miles an hour, or that's all that you had damage for, and we're going to give you an estimate to do it. At least you'll know what you have either way.
Love that.
That's
then day 3, day 4, day 5 with the leader.
Exactly. Yep. So then we get that part. And then it's, after they can do that part, the first 2 parts there, right? And then the next piece would be, okay, we did the inspection on the house, got pictures of everything. Now we're going to teach them how to close, right? So, okay, cool. Hey, Mr. Homeowner, we saw the XYZ. Yes, we did. But hey, look at all these photos. There's other stuff up there, create pain points with the homeowner, nail pops, holes in the roof, ridge cap that have split all the way open and you can see down in the attic, anything to that nature. Okay, cool. These are all things the insurance company's not going to pay, but things that, generate a sense of urgency for you, that you have damage, you have a reason to want to talk about why your roof needs to be fixed. I know it wasn't on your radar, but we need to take a look at these items. But good news is, these pictures over here are insured stuff. This is all damage that was covered by the insurance company. So next step here, call the insurance company, let them know you had some damages. They'll send out an adjuster. We'll meet with the adjuster, show them all the damages that are here and existed. And, hopefully all things go appropriately. They're going to approve the roof just like we did. Obviously, we're not getting it paid for anything from here all the way through that process. So it's only in our interest here that if they pay for the roof here, that's how we get paid, right? So here's our contract, boom, bam. It says we're going to meet the insurance company. Your release liability, my insurance says that we're working together now, so my liability covers me. And then thirdly, most importantly, the insurance company says your roof is totaled out and they're going to give you a check for $10,000 to fix this thing. And we're going to be the company that gets paid for it. Obviously, that's how we make our money, how, Steve, all these other people are paid. So we just don't move. They don't move to the next piece until they can kind of wrap that out, like, kind of second nature, like I just did.
Love that. Final question. Best tip you can give to an owner who is leading an organization and is trying to get to that next level and wants to leave a legacy.
Well, even without the legacy, right? If you delete the word legacy from that, you just want to talk to an owner who's trying to get to the next level. The easiest thing to tell you is that your job in any way, shape, or form is to not work in the business. Get out, OUT, out of the business. You should be working on the business. Your job is to assemble the vendors. I've been told that for 15 years. I have coaches that I pay six figures to that have been telling me that for years. And I fight it because it's super easy for me to walk into a sale, go spend an afternoon selling with the, alongside with the sales team, which I enjoy sales, right? Most owners are one of the three people. Either they're a finance guy and they work on the finance, they hire a sales guy, they hire a production guy, right? Or they're a sales guy.
I'm the same. I do enjoy sales as well.
Yeah, so or they're a sales guy or they're a production guy. So my thing is the sales piece, right? So I love to jump in the truck and go sell with my guys, jump on the same street, show them that I can still swing with the best of them, right? And which is fantastic. It's fun. It's fulfilling for me. It's addictive. It's my choice of drug, and that's why I do this. But what the business needs, I need to be spending all of my time doing the things where we're building, where we're talking to great people who have the ability to do stuff that I can't do. I am a terrible manager remotely, talking to the sales team in Ohio and managing all the pieces and the data points that are, say that we're doing the right thing or we're not doing the right thing, and KPIs and like nannying that. I am absolutely terrible at. So yesterday in an interview that we were having here for a potential sales manager, district sales manager here, that was a lot of the conversation was these are not my competencies. I am terrible at it, but she is fantastic at it and runs currently sales teams in 4 states for another very large national company. And so, through that process was like, hey, when you went there, you probably went there to get in their box and they were going to tell you they want you to do X, Y, and Z. I said, I want you to come here because I don't know. I don't have a box for you. I don't have a shape. I don't have any expectation. I don't want you to come here and do things my way because honestly, my way doesn't work. I want you to come here and help me collaborate and show me and show us and work with us so that we can shape the future of how we're going to run this the best way, because I'm sure you have probably some ideas that you could tweak a little bit from even where you're at, where they want you to do things a certain way, and you can see certain things where if you did just a little bit different here, a little bit different there, that it would function so much better, more efficient for what you were trying to do. And they're not going to let you do it. I want you to come here and do all of that just like that. So take the box that they have that's proven track record that they're already doing that works awesome in 4 states, but do it your way that's a hair different. I want you to have the freedom that you can make those tweaks that are going to be much more efficient here, and obviously work with us, and we'll whiteboard it, and we'll work together to try to make it all whether or not that those changes would actually be functional, possible without costing tons of money, etc.
Love that. Finally, your wife and you are business partners, and it's like the business of being married. Y'all work together, y'all grow together, you've had challenges together. You have the website mywifewillcutyou.com. Speak on that for a little bit and let our audience know how they can get a hold of you if they're struggling and you want some extra feedback.
Totally. So mywifewillcutyou.com was something that was funny. Probably 5, 6, 7 years ago, as we were starting to get some traction, we were hiring. As you start to hire a lot of people, what you'll find is that men don't facilitate what you need in every aspect. They are not always the most organized, right? So sometimes the more organized pieces, sometimes the more customer-facing, customer service pieces, having a feminine lady to call will pacify certain situations that will have better organization positions. And so with my wife being involved in the business every day here with us and all of that, right? So we always joke around. And so she used to say, jokingly to me as we were hiring people and we were talking to women to bring into the company, that for me to not forget that she will cut her. In regards to as we hire females, and like I said, I'm a fit man. I don't know if this will be video or if it'll end up mostly audio, but I'm in pretty good shape, right? So I make a point to do that, and so I'm not a bad looking guy, and so people have, call it hood rat thoughts potentially, and so
that's hilarious.
If one would happen to have a thought that they would maybe want to make a pass at a certain moment here, the joke was always like, hey, you better remind her that I will cut her. And so that was always the conversation, joke in the interview process early on when they would first start, blah, blah, blah. This is my wife. And, don't worry if you ever were to, think about some things here, she would stab you. So you should probably not do that. And, boom, it keeps everybody on a level head moving forward. I had it tattooed on me, for when we're at the beach. So it became like a trademark funny thing there. I have stickers on it that are on my Lamborghini. And so it's funny because every time we mention that to somebody, it's always like this big funny thing, and they're always like, "Oh my God, that's so funny," but it's so true. And then the women of other business owners hear that, and like, "Yeah, you better listen to that. That's I would do the same thing," And so it was just a funny, goofy thing. One day we put it on the website or whatever, and like, "Hey, it's available." I was like, "Okay, cool, let's do that." Like, "Hey, let's trademark this." So there's thoughts about other people with clothing brands and things to try to one day use it as a brand in that space of all of that. But it's led me to speaking opportunities to have conversations with men in the world, and we have a whole 5-hour podcast here to talk about the state of the affairs of the United States and men being men and not being men now, based on all the foods and what's happening to our cellular makeup and genetics here in the last 100 years of United States food poisoning systemically. But aside from that, the people let me get up on stage and yell at them about porn addiction and how to be a good husband and make sure they're dating their wives, and to stop cheating on their wives with their business, because my wife may cut other women, but she will also cut me if I am spending too much time with my business. And that's one of the big pieces that us highly functioning business owners don't take into consideration while we cheat on our wives all day long with our business, because we show up late to dinner, it's date nights, we cancel things with our wives in order to, hey, a customer came up, the business needed, I needed this, that we had to do that, I had to take a meeting. And so every time we do that, your wife or your spouse has a tendency to think, what? Well, you never do that with work. You would never cancel a business meeting to come have lunch with me. You might, right? But more often than not, it's like, hey, honey, you understand, right? I'm doing this for you and us and the business. That we have to do this so that we can have all this stuff. But the reality is that nobody's going out of business because they tell a customer, hey, I can't meet with you tonight at 7:45 p.m. I'm busy. I have, family commitments. So let's figure out another time that meets you. I'm not telling you, screw you, I'm not going to handle your situation, problem, comment, concern. I'm just saying that you're asking me to be available outside of business hours, and it's not unreasonable for me to say I have a prior commitment and condition here that I don't need to jump right on top of whatever you have going on right now. Obviously, there's
Right.
emergencies that do take precedence here or there, but in the overarching theme here, most people have a tendency to prioritize, in their calendars and their schedules. You'll see the business, the schedule, all your appointments scheduled up, and you'll see things there that are loosely tentatively things for the family and the kids and the wife and the whatever, and we end up being late to stuff because we prioritize the business over it. And so
It's so important to date your wife and take care of your wife like she's like, it used to be, business and wife and God, but and as I've become more successful, it's God, family, business. And when you prioritize things right, then you have that abundance, that flow come into you, and you don't have, it's not such a grind. It becomes easy, if that makes sense.
absolutely.
Joshua Steinberg, the owner of Next Gen Restoration Inc. We've covered so many good things today, as well as the owner of mywifewillcutyou.com. If somebody wants to reach out to you, how can they do so?
So if you're on video, I sent you a link with a QR code at some point. We'll have somebody edit it in, stick it in there. You guys can just literally scan that. It gets you all my contact information. But you can find me on Instagram, all the things at Josh Steinberger. Or mywifewillcutyou.com. Super easy. Everything has my contact information there to grab me. It's a easy to remember website.
Josh, thanks for being on the Real Construction Owners podcast. Take care, brother.
Thanks, brother.
I appreciate you being here to watch our show. If you've enjoyed this video, then please subscribe to it for more just like it. You are welcome to leave a comment below as well. Visit federalconstructionuniversity.com or click the link in the section below to learn more about our coaching program. For more information on how to successfully grow your construction firm into an 8-figure business, go to federalconstructionuniversity.com. I'll see you in the next episode.